Luke Kuechly, Panthers linebacker, 9th overall pick in the 2012 draft. What a crazy top 10 that is. Go back and look at that top 10. Ryan Tannehill, number 8 that year, is starting a conference championship game. Kuechly's retired. Andrew Luck, the 1st overall pick, is retired. RG3, the 2nd overall pick, is a backup quarterback. Trent Richardson, long gone. Just amazing what's become of that group in fewer than 8 years. But Luke Kuechly deciding to walk away, that was the stunner last night. And that inspires our draft for today, Chris. The best middle linebackers or inside linebackers in a 3-4 of all time. No trivia question today. I'm just going to give you the first pick since I feel bad that you were sick yesterday. I really
thank
don't.
you so much.
I'm just giving you the first pick.
Yes, I know you are. All right. Well, I mean, that's an easy first pick. I mean, I'm going with Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis is certainly the best middle linebacker of our generation. And, you know, again, was I alive to watch other great linebackers, you know, in the 60s and 70s? No, but I've watched a whole lot of NFL films. Anybody that knows me, or grew up around me or anything, knows I was obsessed with that. But Ray Lewis is the best middle linebacker I ever saw, for sure. I mean, one of the best leaders we've ever seen. Playmaking ability early in his career was great in the pass game. Won a Super Bowl MVP, all the All-Pros, all the Pro Bowls. I mean, Baltimore is who they are right now to this day because of what Ray Lewis created there, the attitude around the Baltimore Ravens. He's kind of transcendent that way. That's why I think he's an easy number 1 pick here.
Yeah, I agree with you that that's the first guy off the board. Although I would say that maybe later in his career, there was a little smoke and mirrors involved.
It was,
still,
sure.
He played a long, long time. And the leadership, the intensity, and you had to deal with it. I mean, you've told the story before about that Ravens defense when you were playing and having those guys up coming after you, breathing fire as you try to figure out how to solve that defense, and Ray Lewis leading the way. I'm staying in that same general vicinity of the world, but this was long before the Ravens were the Ravens. They were the Browns when this guy was patrolling the middle of defenses. When I think middle linebacker, the first guy I think of is Jack Lambert, because he was, for a guy who was not very big, maybe 225, and he had the shoulder pads that were extra big that made him actually look even smaller. The guy was fierce. The guy was vicious. The guy was intimidating. One of my favorite moments, one of my most enduring memories of watching the Super Bowl as a kid was when Super Bowl 10, Roy Jarrella misses the field goal. Cliff Harris of the Cowboys goes over and kind of pats him on the head. And Jack Lambert notices it, goes over, grabs Chris Harris by the jersey, and throws him to the ground. That was Jack Lambert all the time. And when he retired, he just disappeared. And he rarely does anything now. You rarely ever hear from him. He's like a park ranger somewhere in the middle of Pennsylvania. That guy, to me, when I thought football player, not just middle linebacker, when I thought football player in the 70s, Jack Lambert was the first guy I thought of.
Yeah, well, I get it. I mean, he looks football player. I mean, just mean, nasty, got that neck collar on. He's missing teeth. You know, you hear all the stories about him, you know, behind the scenes. I know Tony Dungy's told us a few good stories when he was working with the Steelers in those days. I mean, yeah, he's tough. He just epitomizes, you know, steel curtain, middle linebacker, tough man football. So I'm with you there. He was certainly a name I had here towards the top of my list.
Let me tell you share one quick story that Tony shared with us that can be repeated.
Right.
Not that there's a bunch of bad stories about Jack Lambert, but Tony said the first time they played in Cleveland when he was on the Steelers, Jack Lambert told him before the game, whatever you do, do not take off your helmet. Those fans are crazy. They will throw anything at you. Keep your helmet on at all times. So during the game, Jack Lambert blows a gasket, takes his helmet off, is swinging it around and yelling and screaming, gets ejected. And as he's leaving the field, Tony says to Jack Lambert, hey, you said never to take your helmet off. So then Jack Lambert was mad at him for that comment, but just very dry, very sly. Hey, Jack, you said never take your helmet off. So,
I can see
all right,
that.
who do you got next?
All right, I'm going to go with Junior Seau. I mean, Junior Seau, other than Ray Lewis, for my generation, is the next guy up as far as great middle linebackers. I mean, growing up, watching Junior Seau, whether it was at USC, the San Diego Chargers, or the New England Patriots. I mean, special. I mean, just an intensity about the way he played. But, you know, I think it was the ability to blitz, the ability to run sideline to sideline, you know, the emotion and intensity in which he played with. Also, you know, you hear all the stories with Junior Seau, too. not always doing what he was coached to do. Had a little bit of like, Lawrence Taylor back in the 80s and what he used to do. Just sometimes he just did whatever the hell he wanted. And you went, oh, no, don't do that. Oh, good play, Junior. Good play. I mean, you hear those stories all the time. Hey, Junior, what'd you see there to blitz? I don't know. I just saw the gap and I decided to fly through it. Okay, hey, good thing it worked out. I mean, Junior Seau, to me, again, just like fearsome, crazy middle linebacker, always was flying high. Yep, I mean, had that awesome celebration. For me, he's certainly one of the guys I think of when I think middle linebacker.
And, at a time when we are speculating that head injuries may have had something to do with Luke Kuechly's decision to retire at the age of 28, Junior Seau played 20 years.
Insane.
Before the NFL had its concussion epiphany.
Right.
Think of how many head injuries he had. And, of course, we know the story about the suicide and the CTE and the litigation. And, it's been a tragic story on the back end. But all those years of playing high-impact, high-level, violent football before the NFL realized we need to be more diligent about diagnosing concussions, keeping guys out until they're healed. How many times did Junior Seau get his bell rung?
Yeah,
it may have been every time he made a tackle. So he was a special, special player, and a good pick by you for round 2. I think of middle linebacker position generally, and I think Chicago Bears because they've had so many.
Right.
From Brian Urlacher back to Mike Singletary to Dick Butkus. Only one of the 3 made the all-time team, though, and that was Dick Butkus. So that's my next pick. And just what a football name, right?
Butkus.
Jack Lambert was the football player you think of when you see him, but Dick Butkus just screams out, I play football.
Yes.
Like, you don't have to, when you meet Dick Butkus, you don't have to ask him, what do you do for a living? You know what he does for a living. He's a football player.
You're right. Yeah, he is not like, I run a floral shop around the corner. My name's Dick Butkus. Nice to meet you. What? You do? No, you don't sound like that. You're right. I mean, he's the way he looks, everything about him, tough, Chicago Bears. I mean, you're right. I don't know if there is a name that more says middle linebacker than Dick Butkus. I mean, certainly. He is like the iconic figure, I think, there. And I feel bad because, I'm going to pick a more of a new age guy again. Maybe it's better you go the old school guys because you're old and I'm new, so that's probably better that way. But I'm going to go with a teammate that I played with. I got to go with Derrick Brooks here, all right? I'm going to go with Derrick Brooks, one, because I think he's, one of the first of his kind as far as this new age NFL linebacker where we see that's more predicated on athleticism, right? Derrick Brooks wasn't necessarily like Ray Lewis or Dick Butkus where it was just like, oh, yeah, I'm going to smash you in the hole and I'm going to drive back the guard and the running back and a 4-yard loss. No, Derrick Brooks was, yes, he could do that stuff, but the name of his game was athleticism and smarts. And he was certainly one of the smartest players I ever played against. He was a pain in the butt in practice. He'd call out plays all the time. But, man, in his prime, Derrick Brooks could run with tight ends and running backs up the seam. Of course, you see the pick 6 he had in the Super Bowl and all that. He was phenomenal in the pass game, and it was the Tampa 2 scheme was successful because of a guy like him where, the middle linebacker's gone, and he had enough speed underneath to close all those holes and all those holes within the zone, let alone 2 safeties are back. I'm athletic enough to cover a lot of holes in the run game, too, all the time, too. Derrick Brooks is pretty special.
You're taking a little bit of a liberty there. You're taking a little bit.
Well,
a little bit.
He's like
he covered at the end by sliding him inside in the nickel package. He's not really a middle linebacker,
but he's a 4-2. So where I think of middle linebacker too is 4-3. Like anybody within the 4-3 scheme there to me is middle linebacker-ish, right? So that's where I kind of went with it. I guess you're right. He's probably designated as a will linebacker in the 4-3 scheme, but nonetheless was between the tackles, Mike. So you're right. I probably gave myself a little liberty, but deal with it.
And also possibly with Junior Seau, but that's okay. All right, for me, and look, he made the all-time team, and I just remember back in my formative years, my impressionable years watching football, that anytime I saw Willie Lanier on a football field, I paid attention.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know whether it was that extra little strip he had on his helmet. He had that extra little bump, that piece that, for extra head protection. But 63 of the Kansas City Chiefs. I said 63 Chiefs, Willie Lanier. That's always the guy. It's Willie Lanier. And that's kind of like the first middle linebacker I became aware of when I started watching football. So, you could make arguments for other guys, and I know Mike Singletary's being left off this list, and Urlacher and some others. But to me, I'm just thinking of guys, and I've picked guys from years ago, but that middle linebacker position, it felt like it was more important back in the 60s and 70s, and those were the guys. Butkus, Lanier, Lambert. So third rounder for me is Willie Lanier.
Yeah, I mean, again, when I was growing up and watching he certainly was, iconic for that Chiefs team. Wearing 63, to me, too, looked like, a guy that was a little ahead of his time as far as athleticism at that position, too. He, instead of like the Dick Butkus, was purely run stuffer, all that. Lanier looked like he could really run sideline to sideline. Hey, apologies to Chuck Bednarik, Ray Nitschke, those guys, they deserve to be in this conversation, too. They certainly were there for me. I just wasn't alive to see them, so I picked guys that I was alive to see more or less.
And Chuck Bednarik, the last of the two-way players, played center and inside linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles from 1949 to 1962.
Harry
I thought
Carson,
about him
man.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plenty of great linebackers outside and inside. But Luke Kuechly, where is he? How many rounds will we have to go before we get to Kuechly? Would it be round 4, round 5, round 6? Where do you think he would have landed?
That's a real good question. I would say yes, probably towards around that round 5 to 6 range, I guess. Have to think about that. But regardless, he's going to the Hall of Fame. I know that, and that's all that needs to be said. He was a special player who was really awesome and impactful for some really good defenses and a team that was, in the Super Bowl because of his play and what he could do at the linebacker position.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.